Hello students, my name is Sharina Joshi and I teach English at Deshbandhu College. I am going to be talking to you about Caribbean poetry, about Edward Brathwaite in particular. This is part of your course called New Literatures in English, which is MEG 8, and it is block 6 of that, which focuses on not only Caribbean literature but two poets, Walcott and Edward Brathwaite. So before we come to the poets, basically I would like you to understand what the Caribbean was. Today we know the Caribbean really as a wide range of islands. We know it as West Indies. And when we look at it, we just think of places like Jamaica or Cuba as very separate areas. But this entire area, which is part of the archipelago that stretches from Florida through the Atlantic to South America, around 2,000 miles, is one group islands, both united and divided. And we will talk about how it is united and how it is divided. Why I need to tell you this is that when we come to Caribbean poetry in English today, or in the various rhythms that emerge from Caribbean poetry, Caribbean art, and Caribbean music, you have to understand a bit of its history and of its geography. Okay, so when you're looking at this map right in front of you, notice how it is. On one side to the south, you've got Brazil, you've got Panama, you've got Nicaragua, you've got Honduras. On the other side, not really seen by us, and is, you can see the tip of Miami, and that is Florida. You also see the Bahamas, which is clearly very, very, separate as a place. And then you look at all these other islands, Jamaica, with its capital at Kingston, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Cuba, and for our sake, that is for this paper, towards the east, right towards the east, you are seeing Martinique, which is under the French, Saint Lucia, and then Barbados. Barbados is where Edward Brathwaite comes from. Saint Lucia is where Walcott comes from. And this place, this space, geographical space, also gains great importance for us when we go on to look at the history of colonization. You remember that in school we are told Christopher Columbus landed in America and discovered America. It's not that simple. It's not even that grand when we look at it, right? This place called the West Indies, partly because he actually brought in, the idea of this being the Indies, that he had actually gone on a voyage planning to come to India, the land of gold and the land of jewels and the land of spices, to make money for the Spanish king and queen. It wasn't really about anything, that is, if I could use the word, about civilizing people or about just, exploring the world. It had an economic base. The entire expeditional, period of what is the Renaissance, the 15th and the 16th century, is about finding routes to the fabled East, as they call it. And what was the world that was there before Columbus entered it? And what happened to it is what I'm going to talk about, because we need to understand from where the art and the poetry of this place is coming and where we can place the writers. It is just not about colonialism and post-colonialism. It is about an experience which is very specifically Caribbean. And as I am pointing out to you, the Caribbean, as I am pointing out to you, was originally inhabited by the Tainos, the Caribs, the Siboney, and the Arawaks. So the Caribbean in 1492. Or if I could even put it, broadly, the Americas, I'm focusing on the Caribbean, but the Americas in 1492, just as Columbus is going to enter this world. And while I am going to speak about the Tainos just now, and the major group that had descended from the Arawaks, so Tainos and the Arawaks, what you need to understand, all of us need to understand, is that the world of the Americas was inhabited. It was not uninhabited. It was inhabited by the Native Americans, okay, what they call themselves, the nations that roamed free and wild on the continent as well as on the islands, that make up part of America, or what we call the Americas. So to focus now on the Caribbean, the Tainos, descended from the Arawaks, were of course a major group. They basically came from somewhere in South America. It could be the Amazon basin, because we are still retrieving so much of their journey and their history. They could be from the Amazon basin or the Colombian Andes. The idea that they could be coming from the Amazon basin can be actually seen in the face that is carved in the rocks, this huge face, which is of a Taino chief who was killed by the Spanish for resisting their presence. And it bears a close resemblance to some of the Amazon tribes that we see today, deep in the forests of the Amazon. And they inhabited the areas from Florida to Jamaica, and actually right down Cuba, Puerto Rico, the entire area, including Barbados and Santa Lucia. These people adapted to the sea. They became seafarers who voyaged between islands. They were comfortable voyaging between islands on the canoes that they built, and they were ocean-going canoes which could hold 2 people, 10 people, and up to 150 people. And they would voyage between the islands. This was their home. Why I am talking about that is that you need to imagine that world for a brief minute. Imagine a world in which these people moved freely, as it were, from one island to the other, and their connections between one island and the other are, of a people that spoke a common language, the Arawakan, or, dialects of the Arawakan. There may be different ones in different islands, but overall they were connected, and the sea connected them rather than separated them. The sea was a unifying element rather than a separating element. And this is a world which had a matrilineal form of kinship. I'm bringing in these points also because you realize how different it is from the European world, which enters and intrudes and ultimately destroys this culture and this civilization. So it is a civilization. It is a civilization which may not have a written script, but they had petroglyphs. The petroglyphs have been unearthed. You could look it up, and they are fascinating pieces of art for us now. They did not believe in private property, and this is so different from Europe, where you had a feudal system and you had a monarchy, and they practiced hunting, fishing, gathering roots, and a certain amount of agriculture in some islands where they basically planted roots like yam, etc. And that made much of their food. And they also had marriages between different islanders. So it's not that you are, from Jamaica and I am from, say, Santa Lucia, and therefore we will not marry. The kinship ties were there, and it was very, very easy for them to actually, interact with each other. And that is why I talk about how it is a unifying element, the sea. And the sea becomes a central image, actually, in Caribbean poetry, because notice how important it is. Okay, your landscape, your world is that of islands and sea and ocean. And you can see people coming in and the creatures of the sea, and you lived in harmony with just enough for you to subsist, not to make surplus, because you lived in rhythm with nature. That was the world of the Caribbean in 1492. And then you have in this world also, as you can see in this picture, the Caribs, from where we get the word Caribbean, a little more aggressive than the Tainos, taking in part of the Eastern Antilles, as it were, conquering it maybe, and the Siboneyes. And I want you to notice their dress patterns, okay, and the fact that they are wearing very little in terms of clothes, right? And that they could wear cotton or, you know, even leaves and grass matted together, or basically, you know, they would spin cotton, gets you to understand how simple, in a way, this world is. Almost, for many of the travelers to this area, almost Edenic, okay? I mean, living close to nature. And this world, unified and, you know, spread out, as you can see, their canoes and the way they hunted and fished, is going to be now severely devastated by the arrival of Columbus. In 1492, Columbus arrived. Much valorized in our history books for years. Today, for the last 50 odd years, or a little more maybe, we are really reconsidering and re-looking at what happened in the Caribbean and in the Americas. And the story is not pleasant at all. We have to understand. On the one hand, there is no doubt that it is an exploration which opened up the world, but it opened up the world for Renaissance Europe. Did it open up the world for the rest of the world? I mean, the rest of the places in the world, for Africa, for the Americas, for Asia? It certainly didn't. In any case, Asia, you know, had a history of trade. India had a history of trade and of,